It's installing something.
Don't even sit down.
Let's call to order the Sparks City Council meeting of, December 8th, 2014, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini?
Here.
Council members Ratty? Here. Lawson? Here. Smith?
Here.
Bybee? Here. Schmidt?
Here.
City Attorney Adams? City Manager Driscoll?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, if you would all stand for the invocation, Pastor Brad Darnus from the Sparks Nazarene Church. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be gathered today. And in light of the holiday season, the Christmas season, Lord, we just thank you that you are mindful of us and that you're paying attention to the doings and the going on here in Sparks, Nevada. Father, I pray for wisdom and direction for our council. We thank you for their service. And Lord, may you bless them today. And may you be in the midst of all that we say and do together. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lawson, would you lead us, please?
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is public comment. Anyone want to speak under public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. One note that I need to make is we are going to have a closed-door session today to talk about code enforcement. So what am I trying to say here? In the motion to approve the agenda, if you would approve the closed-door session to start after the close of the redevelopment meeting, please. Okay, looking for a motion? Ms. Ratty.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve the agenda as amended with the closed-door session to be taken care of at the close of the redevelopment agency meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Approval of minutes. Consideration and possible approval of minutes for the regular Sparks City Council meeting for November 24, 2014. Any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
Move to approve as presented.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ratty, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve the minutes of the November 24th meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Announcements, presentations. Presentation from the Executive Director of the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities of the League's bill draft request for the 78th session of the Nevada League of Cities session, or the Nevada Legislative Session. Mr. Henderson. Welcome, Wes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Wes Henderson, and I have the pleasure of serving as your executive director for the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities. Before I get into the BDRs, if possible, I'd like to take a few minutes just to go over some of the actions that have happened at the league over the last year. I think we've had a pretty good year. Our annual conference down in North Las Vegas, what we believe was a success. We were pleased to be visited by both Senator Heller and Representative Titus during the conference. We had some very good educational sessions, some good social events, and I think it was a successful conference. Over the past year, we made some changes to the membership structure and the officer lineup of the league. In the past, we had 2 tiers of membership. We had cities as members, and then we had towns and GIDs as affiliate members. That distinction is now gone. If you're a member of the league, you are a member of the league. And we also changed the officer structure, kind of compressed it a little bit. We had it was a little unwieldy process now. So now we have 4 officers. We have the president, the vice president, the secretary-treasurer, which Mayor Martini, that would be your position next year, and then the past president. But we've also added 3 at-large members to the executive board. 1 at-large member will come from a large city, 1 from a smaller city or larger town, and the 3rd from a smaller town or general improvement district. This way, all of the various types of members that we have in the league will be part of the executive committee at all times. And I think that will make us a more robust and more balanced league. We're working on signing a master services agreement with CenturyLink, where our members and other local governments in the state can sign on to our master agreement for services provided by CenturyLink, hopefully at a discount over what they're getting now. I'm also happy to announce that we are entering into agreement with the U.S. Communities Program. This is a nationwide purchasing program for government agencies. This allows you to purchase goods and services through a nationwide purchasing contract, which it can lower the cost for some of these items, and at the same time, the league will derive some revenue for this. We also kicked off our Friends of the League program this year. This took the place of our old corporate member program, which was a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't matter if you were, Southwest Gas or Joe's Hardware Store. You paid the same amount, you got the same amount of benefits. So what we've done is we've gone to a tiered system where our corporate friends can choose the level of benefits they want to receive for their membership and pay the appropriate fee for that. And I think that's going to be successful. We've already generated more revenue with this new program than we did with the old program, even though we don't have as many friends as we had partners. But we're working on that to bring some back into the fold. And then I would like to talk briefly about the upcoming legislative session, which I think appropriately enough begins on Groundhog's Day. Because if you've been through one, you know where I'm going with that. But as you're aware, the League of Cities is allowed to submit 5 BDRs each session. The BDRs are developed through our Local Government Affairs Committee and our Legislative Committee and then approved by the Board of Directors. And I'm happy to say that all 5 of our BDRs were supported unanimously by our Board of Directors. The first BDR that we have this session, we believe it is a cleanup bill. We believe you already have this authority in statute, but we want to make it crystal clear that making improvements to existing parks and facilities is an authorized use of revenue generated by the residential construction tax. The second BDR that we have seeks to eliminate some duplication. Currently, certain businesses, such as liquor importers, wholesale beer and wine dealers, etc., have to get a permit from the State Department of Taxation. To do this, they have to get the business license from the city in which they're located and the county. What this BDR is hopeful to do is if the business is located fully within a city, then once the city has granted them the business license, they would no longer need to go to the county to get duplicate approval. And the county people are in favor of this as well, to streamline it. The third BDR we have has to deal with the timing of the hearing you have to have on your budget. As you know, you're required to submit your tentative budget to the Department of Taxation by April 15th of every year. But then current statute says you have to hold a hearing on that budget on a date specific. Many times that date is not on the date of your regularly scheduled council meeting, so you'd have to hold a special meeting for that and incur the costs that go with that. This BDR seeks to insert the words "or before" to that date in statute to give you the flexibility to either hold your budget hearing during a regularly scheduled meeting or, if you prefer, have a standalone meeting, but it'd be your option. The next BDR that we have, this session will establish a state coordinated agency for the National Main Street Program. This is a program that brings many benefits to its members. It touches on economic development, historic preservation, urban renewal, and beautification. It's a nice program. And even if you follow all their practices now, you cannot call yourself a Main Street USA city. So this would allow you to do that, and it would also open up some grant opportunities as well. And then finally, the last BDR that we have for this session seeks to clarify some of the provisions regarding the fees that you can charge in complying with public records request. There is a phrase in the statute now that says you may charge for extraordinary use of personnel or technological resources. We are seeking to define that so that everybody knows what that is. And so if you have requests that does cause you to use personnel or technological resources, you can recoup the cost of those. So those are our BDRs, Mr. Mayor. Before I take questions, I'd like to mention a couple other things that have happened or are going to happen. We recently had the National League of Cities Conference in Austin, Texas. I'm happy to say there was 18 people from Nevada who attended this year. That's up over the last couple of years, and I encourage you in the future, if you can, to attend. Now, I think it's very important for us to participate in national events because that's our chance to make sure that Nevada's voice is part of the conversation that sets national municipal policies. And then we have some upcoming events to touch on briefly. We'll be having a board of directors meeting in the Las Vegas area on January 22nd. With our friends at NACO, we're going to host a local government summit the day after that on January 23rd. Then, as I mentioned, the legislative session begins February 2nd. The National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. is March 7th through the 11th, and if you can attend that, I would appreciate it. And we always set up visits with our congressional delegation while we're back there. And then finally, our conference next year is going to be in West Wendover from October 13th to the 15th. And we're looking forward to that and having it back up north. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has. And again, I want to thank you all for your membership and participation in the league. We are your organization. Please reach out to us whenever we can be of assistance.
Questions for Wes? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Wes, for the update. My question is in regard to BDR 455.
Okay.
In regards to how does this bill benefit the cities? It appears it would benefit industry. It appears that the bill would be more associated with NACO than it would be the Nevada League of Cities.
Thank you, Councilman. The benefit to the cities is it can shorten the amount of time it takes to get a business up and going. If a business wants to come to Sparks, when a business wants to come to Sparks, meet your requirements, you grant them a license, and they don't have to wait the additional 60 to 90 days to go through the process with the county. They can get up and running. So that was.
I mean, our total time process in the city is about 14 days for one of these licenses. How does it? I mean, it would seem that there's a problem on the county end of things if they're taking 90 days to issue a license for something. And then I guess, does this inherently do a conflict now between NACO and Nevada League of Cities? I mean, is NACO on board with this? This appears to be a NACO bill and not a city bill.
Well, the bill was actually brought to us by the business regulatory people down south. But yes, the counties.
It was brought by who?
By some of our members down south in Clark County. But the counties are on board with us. They're in favor of this because this ends that duplication of effort and gets businesses up and running quicker.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's fine. I just, it just appears to me that it just looks like a real odd bill being sitting in a city thing. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Wes.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Okay. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate you taking the time to come down.
Appreciate it. You always like coming to Sparks.
We enjoy having you. Okay, let's move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item, 8.1 through 8.5? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I move to accept the consent items as listed on our agenda.
Do a second, Ms. Ratty?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Ms. Ratty to approve the consent items as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Next is 9.1, discussion and possible action on approval of resolution number 3270, supporting the City of Sparks hosting the 2016 Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities Annual Conference. Mr. Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, members of the City Council, Mr. Driscoll, Mr. Adams. Welcome again, Ms. Bybee. Glad you came back. Item 9.1 is a pretty straightforward item. It's a resolution that would allow this body to essentially endorse the City of Sparks to become a candidate and likely selection to serve as the host city for the annual conference for 2016 Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities. You just heard from Wes Henderson, the Executive Director of the League. Mayor Martini has asked the staff to bring forth a resolution for your discussion and approval. Just by way of background, real quick, the League tries to spread the wealth of holding the conference throughout the state. Earlier this year, the conference was in North Las Vegas in 2013. Some of you may recall you attended the conference in South Lake Tahoe. That was in Northern Nevada geography. The year before that, it was in Elko. So Southern Nevada, Northern Nevada, rural Nevada is kind of how the pattern goes for these conferences. The League conference in 2015 will be held in West Wendover, and then 2016 Sparks could be the host city as it comes back to Northern Nevada. It's a good opportunity for all of you to showcase the city to your peers and to elected officials and city staff throughout the state. Clearly provides a small economic impact. About 115 folks attend the conference, and there is a financial commitment by the city. It's a $15,000 financial commitment to help offset some of the costs that the League incurs to put on the conference, and that would be built into the 2017 fiscal budget. So we're still a whole budget cycle away from doing that. So did I capture everything? I think so. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Questions for Adam? Ms. Bybee.
What date are we looking at in, do they meet the same time every year?
Well, no, not necessarily, but it usually is in the autumn, correct, Wes? September, October time frame.
Okay.
Thank you, Wes Henderson, for record. Yeah, it's usually in the fall. We're looking at October, November. We're trying to get further and further away from the ICMA annual meeting so that Mr. Driscoll can attend the conference as well, because it was sandwiched up too close to that. So it would be, like I said, mid to late October to early November.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve the City Council adopt Resolution 3270 supporting the City of Sparks hosting the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities 2016 Annual Conference.
So second, Mr. Lawson. Moved by Ms. Ratty, seconded by Mr. Lawson to approve the resolution for the League of Cities hosted by Sparks. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Adam.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Wes.
all.
Appreciate it. Excuse me. 9.2 is consideration and possible acceptance of the city's comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year 13-14 and review and possible approval of the city's plan of corrective actions. Mr. Cronk.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Jeff Cronk, Financial Services Director for the record. You have before you two items that were attached in your packet, one being the comprehensive annual financial report. Here's the nice big hard copy version of it. The second one is our proposed letter to the state that's required just to our responses for the plan of corrective action that's required by state law according to what the auditors find, both for if there's budget violations or any kind of code violations, the state requires us to respond and give them a plan of corrective action. It's a very common thing. If you recall, we did meet in October, and I presented to you the numbers. If you do remember, I had to say at that time they were preliminary and unaudited, something to that effect. So I did want to just let you know everything that's in this CAFR does represent the same numbers that we shared with you in October, so no changes on the numbers. What you find in the CAFR, though, is the results of the audit. And in attendance today is members of Kafori Armstrong, and they're here to answer any questions. With me also is Debbie Kinder, who is our accounting manager and really manages the audit. So I would be remiss if I didn't say, thank you to our entire financial services department team and the team of Kafori Armstrong, and really a lot of people throughout the city. A lot of work goes into creating this document, and it's a long-term process. So anyway, I just wanted to express my thanks to a lot of people for such a quality document. In a nutshell, it was a clean audit opinion. It's an unmodified. It used to be called unqualified for those of you who've been around a little while, but it's a clean audit opinion now, which is the highest opinion that you can get from an auditor. Essentially what we're asking today is an acceptance of the CAFR that we can then distribute it to various interested parties, and then also an approval of our plan of corrective action and the items that we would respond to the state. So with that, without going through the entire document page by page, we'll spare you of that. We're here to answer questions.
Questions for Jeff or Debbie? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, how many years now are we in a row with same auditors?
Oh, good question. Mid-90s, I'm going to say.
I'm going to go on record again this year saying that I think that we're in violation, and not of just the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law and the Oxby Sarbanes-Oxby and statutes that we can only use same auditors for 5 years in a row. I know we have disagreement, but I'm going on record that I think we're in violation of that. Thank you.
Just to respond to that a little bit, we are going to go out to a bid after this year. So
yes, it's my understanding we're going to bid to affirm that it's combining.
Well, it'll be open. It'll be an open bid.
A merger going on, and we're going to go back, and I think that's in violation of the spirit of the law too, to go to affirm it's combining. But that's a legal point. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? Any other questions? Okay, looking for a motion. Julia, Ms. Reddy.
I move to accept the comprehensive annual financial report and approve the plan of corrective action for fiscal year 2013-14 as presented by and authorize financial services director to distribute to interested parties as necessary.
Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 9.2 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, 9.3 is review and possible approval of an exclusive negotiating agreement between the City of Sparks, the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, and Silver Wing Development for the proposed sale and development of real property located within the Victorian Square project area. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the City Council, I'm Armando Ornelas, City Planner. Back on October 27th of this year, the agency board directed staff to negotiate and bring forward for the City Council and the agency board's consideration an exclusive negotiating agreement with Silver Wing Development for certain property in our Victorian Square project area. Fundamentally, the exclusive negotiating agreement provides Silver Wing with exclusive rights with regard to the possible disposition, transfer, or use of these Victorian Square parcels, and those are the ones that are identified in the red outline in Attachment B to the ENA. Teresa, could I have that exhibit, please? During this period, Silver Wing, which is represented by Angela Fuse of CFA today, Mr. Witt is out of town, will continue to plan for and do analysis of the project that they're proposing for Victorian Square. As of today, that project includes 220 proposed apartments as well as 9,000 square feet of restaurant space. And under the terms of the ENA, Silver Wing is obligated to provide the agency by the date of January 21st the information that's specified in Attachment A. So that includes a schematic plan, market assessment, development and operating pro forma budgets, financing plan, and a development schedule. And basically the intent is for agency staff to be able to review that information and essentially do our due diligence as to whether we think there's a feasible project there, and then proceed to negotiate the terms of a disposition and development agreement with Silverwing that we would then bring back to the agency board and the city council for consideration. So that's really the end goal of the ENA period, is to give them that time to continue to do their work, knowing that they have exclusive rights, and then negotiate a development agreement by the end of the ENA period, which, for the purposes of in terms of the term of the agreement, the parcels that are identified as parcels 3, 13, 21, 22, 24, 4, and 6, and 4 and 6 are the two parcels that are in front of the movie theater. And the movie theater is basically there in the center of the top of the diagram. The two parcels, 4 and 6, you can see are in front. With regard to all of those parcels, the term of the ENA is essentially 6 months. The exception to this is parcel 9, which is actually owned by the city of Sparks, although it was always intended to be in the name of the agency, so that's something we would address during this period as well. But parcel 9 is the parcel that you may recall that Silverwing would like to work with EDON on to try to identify a corporate office tenant to be able to populate this area with daytime office workers. And so on that parcel, they've requested a 2-year term, and essentially when and if they identify the appropriate user, then we would negotiate either an amendment to the disposition development agreement or a separate disposition development agreement for parcel 9. So that's the property, and that's the term in terms of time frame. The city and the agency also have responsibilities during this period of time, and those responsibilities are specified in Section 3.02 of the ENA. And in large part, these are things that we would do, regardless. But the idea was to specify them here so that the developer would have some comfort in terms of our obligations. And they include diligent and timely review of Silverwing's land use entitlement applications, which we anticipate will be a site plan review, and then tentative and final maps. In term also to look at possible right-of-way abandonments, and specifically, if you look at the map again, some or all of the alley that lies between parcel 13 on the north side and parcels 21 through 24 on the south side potentially would be abandoned. And I think this was actually at staff suggestion, because if the project is overlaying that area, it makes sense for Silverwing to have maintenance responsibility and control over it. So we would obviously retain any necessary easements. There's a lot of utilities in that alley, but that's the primary abandonment that's contemplated. And then also with regard to parcel 13, you may notice that the northwest corner of parcel 13 is notched. They'd like us to consider an abandonment of that so that they can square up the building, and actually there's a significant increase in the usability of the parcel, because you can square off the building and not have to essentially remove the most western portion of that from construction. Other responsibilities on the part of the city and the agency would be to review the redevelopment plan and identify whether any modifications or changes are needed, and if so, to diligently pursue amendment of the redevelopment plan. And I think with regard to all of these things that I've mentioned so far, the land use entitlement review, the abandonments, and the redevelopment plan, the agency and the city council retain their legislative discretion, and so you'll see in the agreement that those caveats are there. Moving on to the next agency responsibility would be a best effort to acquire parcel 23, which is owned by the owners of the Nugget, which is Wolfhound Holdings. As we discussed when I came to ask you for direction back in October, parcel 23, ideally, along with parcel 24, would be incorporated into Silverwing's project. Silverwing does not have to have these two parcels to make their project work, but if we can arrange a swap for other agency property, for example, for parcel 25, and we can do that on a timely basis, and timely in this instance is defined as by April 1st, by April 1st having a definitive agreement to execute a swap, then they could incorporate it and stay on the time schedule that they proposed. So that's the fourth of the 5 obligations, if you will, and the fifth is to obtain appraisals because, as we've discussed in the past, the intent is for Silver Wing to acquire these parcels at appraised value, and so that's sets the market rate for the cost of that acquisition. So again, to reiterate, the goal during this E&A period is for everybody to basically determine whether they think we have a feasible project here, and if so, to negotiate a development agreement that would be brought forward for City Council and Agency Board consideration within that 6-month period. Staff is recommending approval, and that concludes my presentation, and I will address any questions that you may have.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 220 units,
Yes.
is that assuming that 23 and 24 are included, or will that add more units?
That would add more units.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lawson?
On parcel 9, Armando, if we have another person or entity that wants to go in there early, do we have to wait for 2 years before then, or do we have some way to take it back?
Well, that would be what you would be agreeing to with this E&A version of the E&A would be that during that 2-year period, we would only talk to Silver Wing about that parcel. So that's what's proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bybee?
I had a question on parcel 23. If that is not acquired, how would that impact the right-of-way? Would that have any impact since it would be their right-of-way also? Would that be, the right-of-way easement be a problem if 23 was not acquired?
I think the short answer to your question is no, but if I could have the document camera, I can point out a couple of things. So to orient yourself, north is at the top here. Here's the curve around Victorian Square Plaza Circle. This is the full parcel in front of the movie theater. This is Avenue of the Oaks, and this is the existing alley. So with regard to parcel 23, if in fact it is not incorporated in the project, if there is no swap and it's not incorporated into the project, we would maintain access for parcel 23 via the existing alleyway here. So that would remain public and would provide access to parcel 23.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Armando, last month when we talked about this, or 2 months ago to come forward, Silver Wing had 160 units scheduled, and they're at 220 now. What has been able to drive that number on up?
Two things, and I think Andrew LaFuse is here representing Silver Wing and probably can address it in more detail than I can, but basically they are looking at a 4-story product now versus a 3-story product that we were looking at initially. I think they're doing something interesting with regard to the 3rd and 4th stories, and those would be 2-story units with internal staircases. They would be narrower, and so that would allow them to push the unit count up. The second aspect of it, and that on this portion of the site, that's approximately 200 units.
Okay.
The additional 20 units are with the additions of parcels 4 and 6. This is the parcel on the west side in front of the theater, and there would be one on the east side that matches. The intent is to have basically interior parking for approximately 10 units upstairs, and so you get 10 in each building with the restaurant or retail space facing onto the plaza.
So acquiring 23, then would probably push this project to 250, 260?
I'm not sure it would be that high, Councilman Schmidt, but I think basically you could potentially get 2 more buildings like these on this side here.
And if back when our last developer, I want to say Trammell Crow, but is that Trammell Crow?
Trammell Crow, correct.
Yes, we were pushing 400 units in that project?
No, I think we were pushing, I want to say it was about 180 to 200 units, but again, you may recall that we were only talking about Well, we were talking about these three parcels,
Okay.
and not these here nor these here. And, those were probably somewhat larger units. I think they were, everything here was condominium units. Also, these were essentially row house style condominiums, and so the configuration was different.
I guess get to the bottom line of my question in comparison is that we haven't given up anything since Trammell Crow days to this particular project. In fact, we probably have gained in values because we've increased units, densities. It's as good of a project, if not better, than we were looking at 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
I think there's some differences, but I would say that on whole, I think we're looking at something that's probably equally beneficial.
All right. And my only concern, I've talked to staff, and this is a good thing that Silverwing is very time driven. They're very concerned about time, and it's a benefit to the city that this doesn't drag on. Anything that we can go through the process, such as appraisals, that may end up being a sticky point. We're doing appraisal. Is Silverwing doing appraisal at the same time? In order to go ahead in case they don't like our appraisals and they think we're out of line in some ways?
Well, we're obligated, Councilman Schmidt, to have a review done of our appraisals. And so Silverwing, I don't believe Silverwing has, has contracted for their own appraisals. Certainly, they've been given, will be given the opportunity to, discuss their view of the value of the property with the appraiser. The appraiser has to maintain, their independence and conform to the standards that they're obligated to. But at the end of the day, this is a redevelopment project. There are if there's a gap as a result of the appraised value, I mean, there's always a conversation that can be had there in terms of how to close the gap.
My concern is just not limited to the appraisals, is that how do we, we have a developer that's putting all of his money into this project. The city's doesn't have a dime invested in this. We've spent millions over the last 14 years to do this thing, or actually 35 years now with the project. We've spent millions. We're not spending any money. How do we encourage this developer? How many hiccups along the road? We've done this so many times. We know the process of what we're going to go through. What can we look at to avoid any pitfalls? And that means probably sitting down with staff and advanced planning of every step of the way of how can we make this thing go as smooth for the developer, the city, and don't find ourselves that if he wants to start construction right after rib cook-off, how do we meet that deadline? How do we make that happen? And so if the developer can't handle it, if he messes up along the line, then that's their issue. But the city's prepared to handle this thing because we should be investing our money in these types of safeguards to make sure we stay on track, because we're not spending any money with the developer's spending all their own money. So that's my concern, and I think we got a great project here, and I think we need to work due diligence to keep going with it.
Anyone else? Ms. Reddy?
Well, I did want to actually, to follow up on Councilman Schmidt's comment, agree and then commend staff. I think they've done an outstanding job working with the developer, who is very aggressive, to elevate some issues that I won't say are beyond our control, but may not be as easy to drive in terms of a timeline as some other issues. So I know that we've talked about the CC&Rs that exist in Victorian Square and in this development area, and we've also talked about some needs for a committee that has been somewhat inactive, that staff has been actively working on. So I think that they're doing a good job of, and these are curveballs, right? These are things that could take it off track relatively quickly. So I think what I'm seeing is that we're operating with that intent. I know certainly Ron and I have had lots of conversations in terms of our roles in terms of redevelopment about how do we do that. So I think that that's the intent. I just don't want to set anybody up that if it falls apart, if we don't get there by construction by after the rib cook-off is an incredibly aggressive timeline, and everything could go perfectly well, and we could still not hit that timeline. So I just want to make sure that that is also out there. But I think, but I agree with what Councilman Schmidt is saying. Anything we can do to make sure that we're ahead of the curve is good. So, go ahead.
Well, I think in response to both your concern and Councilman Schmidt's, we will do everything we can on our end to keep it on track, and we are trying to think through and anticipate the issues that may arise.
We're also darn excited that somebody wants to do something.
Absolutely.
So with that, it seems like there's no further, so I'm going to go ahead and put a motion out there to approve the exclusive, public hearing?
No.
No. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay. I move to approve the exclusive negotiating agreement with Silver Wing Development.
Hold on a second. You want to make a public comment?
I take that back.
Which one are you commenting on this?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize, I got tied up. Dane Hilliard with Green Street Communities in Reno. I'd just like to speak real briefly. And Armando, could you put that map back up? First of all, we're very excited about this project and strong support of it. With one issue, we're in final negotiations on buying the Silver Club Hotel adjacent to Parcel 9. Which is right there. So we're buying this project, and this parcel right here, we would like to see if it's possible to have that pulled out. My understanding is that it's not in the primary focus of the development that they're doing down in this area. And we believe it might be a parcel that we are going to need for our development. So we're concerned that that particular parcel is part of this exclusive agreement. Other than that, I think it's great. We're excited to have them doing their projects here, and we think Victoria Square is going to see some great improvements. So I don't know if it's possible this hour to modify it, but again, that's the only issue we have. I strongly support what they're doing, and we think it'll be great, but we're concerned it'll restrict our development opportunities and possibly limit what we're trying to do with the Silver Club. So, also, the casino owner voiced his concern. We're buying the Silver Club from the casino operator. They voiced their concern that they have some opportunities that could also be restricted on the uses of their second and third story by not having enough parking. I know they're working with a potential call center to take 60,000 feet of their building upstairs. So just another option that they would be, right across the street, potentially restricting them from expansion opportunities also by not having the potential to acquire that site. So again, sorry to come at the last hour.
Okay, questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's for staff. Just because we have an exclusive negotiating agreement means that the city will only negotiate with the developer on record. That does not allow the developer to not be in negotiation with any other developers out there for this piece of property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Angela, you have something?
Thank you. For the record, Angela Foos with CFA representing the applicant Silverwing. Maybe just to take a step back. As you know, Jay is a very aggressive developer, and he very much sticks to timelines. Just so you're aware, he is planning to start the planning process. There's a site plan review application required. There's a tentative map application required. These things are in motion, happening now. We'll be submitting the first application this month. That's for the site plan review, and the second application is the tentative map that will happen in January. We've reached out to the group, the 39 North Downtown Group, and we'll be meeting with them after the first of the year, most likely in February. So things are happening. He wants to keep that parcel that was just referenced, open for development as an office building. He does not see that as being used as parking, surface parking. So that's what his goal is to be able to develop that piece as office. In working with EDON and in working with the development community, if that doesn't happen, of course they can stay as surface parking, and if that's the desire of the council, obviously that's what's going to happen. But his goal is to be able to develop that into an office user. Beyond that, like I said, he's very aggressive, and meeting these timelines is tough, and staff has been incredibly wonderful in working with him. It's probably a part-time job for Armando, just keeping up with him, but it's been a great professional working relationship with staff and with Jay, so we appreciate that very much.
Okay?
Looks like you have 3 lit up, are they not showing up?
Yeah.
No, did you make the motion already?
I rescinded it until we have public comment, but I've been, if I have a question or comment.
Okay, Julia first with the question, then Charlene with a question. Did you have a question, or you want a second motion?
I was just going to say.
Okay.
So
Julia with a question, go ahead.
I just was unclear. So the deal that's under negotiation is just for the Silver Club Hotel property, or is it also for the casino? I was unclear on
No,
that.
it's just the hotel.
It's just the
At this
hotel.
time,
Okay.
yeah. And our plan is to turn it into apartments.
To turn it into apartments. Okay, great. And then do you have a bit of a bird in the hand problem, right? So do you have a sense of your timeline?
Yes, we're supposed to have the purchase and sale agreement in our hands by the end of the week from the seller, which is the Bourbon Square owners. And we've already done preliminary designs, which I shared some with Armando. We would go into working drawings as quickly as possible and hope to start construction in spring. It's already built, so it's a remodel.
Yeah.
But so if your project is just to remodel the apartments, then why is this parcel important to you?
There's issues with parking, potentially, and also the casino owner shared with me to share with you today that they have concerns about that parcel, particularly for parking needs they may have for a user for the upstairs of their building. So my comments are twofold. One's from the casino's perspective, one's from mine.
Ms. Bobby?
Armando, question on parcel 9. When does the 2-year, we're talking about they have 2 years to develop, is that from today? Or what is our 2-year date?
That would be from the date of approval of the agreements. That would be today, if you approve it today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Armando, if I can go back to the Trammell Crow project we had before, what was parcel number 9 scheduled for at that time?
That was scheduled for approximately 35 row house-type condos.
So just about every project I can remember for 14 years, we've always had something going on that lot. We've never anticipated having it as a parking lot.
Councilman Schmidt, I can't say with certainty that every project over the last 14 years has been that, but certainly the Victorian Square development plan, the approved development plan calls for that to have an active use on it.
Thank you.
Ms. Reddy?
So I absolutely appreciate what you're looking for, and we were aware of the concerns about the parking for possible uses on the second and third floors of the Bourbon Square facility. But I think that we had some discussion about that the last time, and I've come around to the thinking of having the office use is a better use, and having somebody working on that office use may bear some fruit. That said, I've also had conversations about this with Jay Witt directly, and was reassured, I don't know how reassuring it will be to you, but was reassured that if there was a development that came forward that was something that was going to be good for the city and good for the community, that he would be absolutely open to talking to anybody. So I would encourage you to reach out to Mr. Witt directly too, because there may be an opportunity for a partnership there. But that said, I think I'm going to stick with the original plan, except for that my iPad just went to sleep. There we go. So I move to approve the exclusive negotiating agreement with Silver Wing Development.
Do I have a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Riley, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 9.3 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Armando. Appreciate it. 9.4 PCN 14046, discussion and possible action on a tentative map, Kylie Ranch North Village 37C, request for 147 lot residential subdivision on a site approximately 33.12 acres in size. Ms. Melby.
This is.
What's wrong with these guys? Come here at the last minute.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini and Council. I'm Karen Melby. I'm Senior Planner. Before you today is a tentative map in Kylie Ranch North Village 37C. They were requesting 147 residential lots on a site that's about 33 acres. This is part of the Kylie Ranch North Plan Development Handbook. As you can see, the parcel is outlined in blue on this exhibit. They will have to extend the roadways up to this parcel in order to develop the parcel at this time. The staff is recommending approval with 23 conditions. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Melby? Okay. Applicant want to speak? Welcome, Lois. How are you?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Lois Brown, and I'm from the applicant, KM2 Development. Karen summarized the project fairly well. We have 147 minimum 6,000 square foot single-family residential lots. We're in agreement with the findings and the 23 conditions as outlined in your staff report. Our next step will be a final map in this area. The staff has recommended approval, the Planning Commission recommended approval, and we would welcome your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have, and welcome to our new council member.
Questions for the applicant or Ms. Brown? Okay. Any questions from staff? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the tentative map associated with PCN 14046, adopted findings T1 through T12, and the facts supporting these findings is set forth in the staff report and subject to conditions of approvals 1 through 23 as listed in the staff report.
Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve agenda item 9.4 PCN 14046. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is 9.5, consideration and possible approval to reject all bids for a City Hall HVAC upgrade project, bid number 14/15-008.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. For the record, my name is Brian Kaysen, Capital Projects Manager for the City of Sparks. I'm here today to present the possible approval to reject all bids for the City Hall HVAC upgrade project due to insufficient funding. Of course, the engineer's estimate was in line with the available funding, but unfortunately the bids came in high. This is a very important project, and we do plan on getting this project onto the fiscal year 16 budget to continue on with it. With that being the end of my presentation, I will answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Brian? Mr. Schmidt?
Quick question, thinking this on over since I met with staff about this. How much have we spent on our HVAC system in City Hall in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years, honestly, I don't have that number. I mean, it's been a relatively substantial number just because of the age of the system and the ongoing maintenance and that sort of thing.
Well, we've had a couple of construction projects already, have we not? Does it work?
For the HVAC system? Yeah. I'm not aware of
okay.
what they are, how much they were.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay, if not, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith?
I move to reject all bids for the City Hall HVAC as outlined by staff.
Do you have a second, Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to reject all bids on agenda item 9.5. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Okay, next we have 11.1, public hearing, possible discussion on bill number 2678, an ordinance amending Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code, Section 20.56, signs, to change the method of sign calculations, to add regulations governing digital signs, and providing other matters properly related thereto. Mr. Thompson, Ms. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Marti and Council. I'm Karen Melby, Senior Planner. Before you today is an ordinance to amend Chapter 2056, which is signs, of the Sparks Municipal Code, to change the method of sign calculations, add regulations, and deal with some of the administrative issues that we've had with the sign code. This request, some of the administrative issues that we've had is calculating the sign areas, the 25% opacity requirement in there, maximum sign areas, and lastly, temporary signs. The other thing that we had with is we wanted to add digital signs to the sign code. There are 4 main areas of administrative problems, and that's been the maximum sign area for commercially zoned properties is based on the business frontage or building frontage, which is sometimes hard to determine. The maximum sign area must be calculated for the entire site, including all of the walls, monument, and freestanding signs. So when a tenant comes into a shopping center, they have to provide the calculations for the entire shopping center and not just for their space. In the proposed code, we are proposing to do it by their business frontage, which it means that they can just look at how much area they have for their particular business. The other issue that we've had is in the current code, we have this 25% opacity requirement for signs, which is intended to encourage channel letter signs. We are proposing to change that with a new method of calculation of sign area. The last thing we've had administratively difficulty with is regulating temporary signs. Staff has established a stakeholders group which we worked on for the revised codes. We had 3 workshops with the sign industry, 2 workshops with the Sparks business stakeholders, and met with also local sign advocacy groups. The draft code before you includes these changes and there are comments. On August 11, 2014, the City Council conducted a public hearing on this proposed draft amendment. The Council continued the item to provide staff the opportunity to do some additional analysis and to develop alternatives. We came back to you on October 27th with alternatives, and you provided direction to us. The ordinance before you today incorporates those changes, and they are represented in the draft document that you have that's highlighted in gray, so you could easily identify which has been changed. The staff is proposing to change the distance between digital special freestanding signs to 1,500 feet if the special freestanding sign or the non-conforming outdoor advertising structure, which is converted to a special freestanding sign, is existing prior to the adoption of the sign code, would be converted to digital. If the special freestanding sign is a new digital sign erected after the adoption of this sign code, the minimum distance would be for a digital special freestanding sign would be 3,000 feet. This reflects the draft code, as I said, in gray in the code. Also on October 27th, the City Council asked the staff to look at regulating the distance of digital signs from residentially zoned properties. Staff is proposing a separation of 300 feet measured at a radial distance. The separation distance may be reduced to 150 feet if the orientation of the sign is away from residentially zoned property. This proposed change is in a separate document before you today to allow City Council the opportunity to either provide further direction to the staff or to approve the draft sign code incorporating this proposed amendment with Bill 2678. The draft sign code adds new definitions, including a new definition for residentially zoned property. The current code did not address the new sign technology and illumination standards, so that is what the draft code also incorporates as regulations on digital signs. I was not going to go through all those standards again, and we can discuss that in questions if you want. On November 24th, Scenic Nevada submitted to City Council a report that was prepared for them. Staff has reviewed this report, and on December 2nd, we met with Ms. Ray and Jerry Wachtell, who participated by telephone. The discussion covered the report's recommendations regarding how the brightness of signs, and digital signs in particular, should be measured, as well as brightness levels that should be permitted. Although Mr. Wattel's report is informative and offers an alternative approach to regulating sign brightness, staff recommends that the City Council go with our recommendation as presented in our ordinance, or Bill 2678. The basis for this recommendation is that we believe it's important to take into account light levels in the area surrounding the sign. The foot candle meter measures the light coming off the sign while taking into account the amount of ambient light within the area surrounding the sign. Simply measuring the light coming off a specific part of a sign doesn't give you what the background area of the area is. The standard proposed by staff, developed after much consideration and research by staff, thus allows for signs to operate more brightly in well-lit areas while requiring them to be turned down in dark locations. The draft proposes to eliminate it's temporary signs, and the draft proposes to eliminate the two-day temporary sign in favor of what we're calling a portable sign, which is like the little sandwich signs that you see out in front of businesses. These cannot be greater than 8 square feet and must be located within 20 feet of the front door of the business and can only be displayed during business hours. Section B of the temporary sign section, we are proposing new regulations on temporary signs. And you can have, would be to the discretion of the property owner or the property manager, and we only can have 2 per public entrance with a maximum of 8 per site. All temporary signs must receive a sign permit. The application would have a restricted time period on that application. The maximum size for a temporary sign is 18 square feet, with the exception of a real estate sign or a leasing sign can be as big as 80 square feet like a banner that you would see on the side of a building saying for lease. For non-conforming sign, the draft adds that a non-conforming sign cannot be changed to a digital unless the sign is brought into conformance. This is an exception for the replacement or enhancement of an existing digital sign. This concludes the presentation. Tim and I are here available for questions.
Questions for Tim or Karen? Mr. Smith.
Almost forgot my question. Do we have a plan in place to let these business owners know that they now have to have a permit?
For the temporary signs? Mm-hmm. Yes, we are working on that. I have worked up a pamphlet that we will be handing out to the businesses. And then also we're going to do a lag time between when we're going to be requiring the temporary use permits.
Perfect.
So that we can educate the business people.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern goes with this temporary sign ordinance. Why I understand the issue that everybody has with it. You know, I get down to how much is this going to cost the city to issue these permits? And, you know, I asked the question to staff and guide, well, it's probably going to cost twice as much as we get for the permit. And it's probably a very, very conservative effort. So you sit there for every single temporary sign that somebody wants to do. You have your time limit's a year, right? So that sign can be out there for a year. So that's $35 you're going to get for the sign. So that's going to cover the application process, the review process, the notification process, collecting the check and having finance cash the check and go through that process, the stickers that we're going to put on the signs. Then someone to go monitor those signs, you know, on a regular basis to see if they have a sticker or not. Are we creating another problem here? And that's where the financial situation, if you put 100 permits on out there a year for it, you're going to have, you just spent $35,000 of the city's money just trying to do this program. You can't even on one. You lose money on the first one, and you can never get back into it. Is there that big of a problem that we're going to go ahead and dig into the general fund by that much money?
Currently, you are required to get a temporary sign permit, and we do not collect any money for those right now. And with the sticker, our intent was to, that way when the like code enforcement drives by, they can see that that's a sticker and the sign has it, and they can see what the expiration date on there is at this point. And I was going to discuss this under the next item when we talk about the actual fee that we're proposing for this. But we were hoping not to have too high a fee because we didn't want to discourage people from applying for it. But the intent is to set up a system and maybe like an Excel sheet or something that we would have that we can keep track of the temporary signs, because at this point we've been having trouble keeping track of when the sign goes up, when it can come down, when it expires. Because the way the code is written right now, you have 90 days and then a period down and then 100 or 180 days up and then a period down, and that gets very confusing.
And I understand that. And I understand we're trying to simplify things, but to me, simplification is that, if you're willing to go and throw X amount of dollars a year into sign code enforcement, so you're going to go negative cash flow already, would it be easier to say, here's a web portal, we want you to put an application in for your sign, or you're going to have at your front door of your residence, bang that out, somebody in staff looks at that and says it's approved for this amount of date, you got your log, you can drive by and say, business, Joe's Pizza is allowed to have a fold-up sign at his front door. You've got your negative costs going to be happening, but now you're costing a business owner for the same thing, and you're still putting out the money. You're not recouping hardly any of your cost here in this thing. And so
Well, we estimate it's going to take about an hour of time, because it's just an application that they file with us. We review it, and we issue them a sticker.
And average staff time is about $65 an hour.
So
and you haven't even inspected yet. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee.
What is our current cost of the temporary signs? I know obviously the enforcement is an issue, but currently what would you estimate our costs are for manpower of how we're doing it today?
We don't charge any fee for temporary sign permits now. I don't know how much time. I'm sorry, I couldn't really give you an estimate.
So we have man hours that are currently how we operate.
But that's all
temporary
underneath
signs.
the general budget. That's just all our operating costs is under code enforcement.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions? Anyone else? Ms. Ratti.
So, on the temporary sign thing, I think it's an impossible question to answer, because when we had 5 code enforcement officers, we spent time on signs. And then when we had 1 code enforcement officer, I hazard to guess we spent very little time on signs because we were in crisis management. And now we're up to 3 code enforcement officers, and we might spend some time on signs again. That's how it's sort of played out over the last 5 years, at least. Signage, excessive signage that blocks sidewalks, signage that is being blown away in the wind, signage is the number one complaint that I get as a city council member in my ward. And so this is certainly something that I've been advocating for. And I think the challenge is that part of the reason it's been so difficult to track, and it ends up, at least my understanding is that we spend more code enforcement time on it because it's so complicated now, 90 days off, now go back 120, that I always want to just say Joe, I know it's bigger than Joe now, but our code enforcement officers spend all this time trying to figure out whether or not they even can have that sign or not have that sign. Whereas now, it will be very black and white, and at least we will be recouping some costs. Right now, we're not recouping any costs. So, is it the cost of neighborhood preservation? Is it the cost of community beautification? Yeah, absolutely. But it's a problem, and it's a problem that affects how people perceive our community. I think it's an economic development issue, and I think it's worth putting some time into. Now, I would expect, absolutely, that staff will come back in a year and say, all right, this is what we've been doing it for a year, this is what it really looks like, we might want to make some modifications, because we're going to give this a shot. And if it's excessive in cost, then we address that in another budget cycle. But I would like to see, after 5 years of recession and doing nothing on this issue, to try to be proactive and actually address some of the complaints that I get on a regular basis. That's my personal take on it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I'll open it to the public. I have one card, Ms. Ray.
Council members, I just wanted to encourage you to adopt this ordinance.
We may not agree on all of the restrictions or the limits. Scenic Nevada will always try to get stronger limits to protect the community and protect scenic beauty. But having said that, we do have a difference of opinion still on the report that we submitted on brightness levels. But having said all that, I would urge you to pass this, and I would ask you to include the residential separation that staff's recommending. Of course, we wanted it a little higher, but if you would include that, we would be very happy that this ordinance got passed. And I'd also like to thank staff again for their patience and their time with me and with Jerry Wachtel. They were very kind about that. And they took a lot into consideration. And I still feel like, as Councilwoman Ratty said, that after a year, maybe we can come back and revisit this. And if there's complaints about brightness levels, we can drag this report out and discuss a little more on the issues. So thank you very much, and I hope you pass it.
Can I say something?
Thanks, Ms. Ray. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Ray, I want to thank you for that. I mean, usually they go down with the ship, yelling at us and everything else, so it's appreciated very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, ship hadn't sailed yet, so. Still opportunity. Anyone else under public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment, bring it back to council for action. Ms. Barbie.
Okay, I move to adopt Resolution 3272, amending Resolution 3255, revising fees to provide services by the City of Sparks for temporary sign permits. Should I have done the other one first? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That was important.
Mm-hmm. Shoot. No. If you want to go ahead and do it, and I'll second, then I'll do the second half.
I say that, but then I don't want to set you up because if I'm heading in a different direction, let's make sure that we're on the same page. So I would like to move to approve Bill 2678 associated with C8-3-09 to amend Chapter 20.56 signs to change the method for sign calculation to add regulations governing digital signs and providing other matters property related thereto, and add the separation distance from residential as item 12 in section 20.56.170. So I am advocating for adding the 300-foot residential separation.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to approve as outlined by Ms. Ratty. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-0 with one abstention. Mr. Lawson is an abstention because he still works at the industry, right?
Yes. At least for a few more weeks.
Okay. All right. 11.2, public hearing, consideration and possible action on resolution number 3272, adding fees for temporary sign permits. So have you covered most of this already, Karen, or is there?
I think so.
Okay.
I was just going to say, like I said, this is an administrative fee for the processing of the temporary sign permit. Staff will be issuing a sticker that would be required to be posted on every temporary sign, so that it would be easier for the field people to see if that sign is expired or not. The proposed fee will not cover the total amount of staff time and only be a portion of the administrative cost, but we didn't want to institute a fee that would become onerous or burdensome for the businesses. Since this is a new process, we wanted to get the word out, let them know that we are starting this process and that it's a $35 fee. Temporary signs have been difficult for us to regulate, and this would assist us by having a sticker on there. Staff's recommending approval.
Questions?
I think he's got a comment.
What?
Mayor Martini, Armando Ellis. I think with regard to the fee and Councilman Schmidt's comments, I think we can certainly look at whether there's a better way to do it than the sticker. Potentially, for example, when we have full implementation of the Excel software, maybe there is a way for our public to be able to log in, basically, obtain their permit by, over the internet, and then we can track, and our code enforcement can track whether signs that are on the premises are valid or not. In the meantime, we're proposing this particular system.
Okay. questions, remembering this is a public hearing item, so. Ms. Reddy?
Just clarity around, it's all temporary signs, right, not just sandwich boards?
The sandwich boards are portable signs, and they don't need a temporary sticker. They would only be like the banners, or, those vertical banners, those
The
kind of
flags,
signs. The flags.
so it covers all of those temporary, and anything that might come up that is temporary in nature would be as the industry evolves.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Bybee?
So on the stickers, you're kind of looking at, like the DMV does on our license plate. So you'd have a sticker that is maybe a blue sticker if they expired next December, different colors, so that driving by would be faster and easier for code enforcement to see. Is that kind of what you had in mind?
That's what I thought is, yes. And I've ordered a sample to play with the stickers.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Schmidt?
If I just follow up with Ms. Riley's question, that does not cover sandwich boards?
No. Sandwich boards only can be displayed during business hours, and they have to be within 20 feet of your front door. And they cannot be in a landscape planner or cause any obstructions to driveways or pedestrian ways.
I thought that was one of our big complaints.
That's because they've been farther than 20 feet from the doors, or they're blocking access down a sidewalk.
Then my other question is, I know we've concentrated on the sign ordinance mainly with billboards and stuff like that. So the billboard industry and stuff has had notification of this. I don't even know if they've had notification of this last portion of it. Have we talked to any of the associations on out there, the retail associations or anything about this, and let them know that this is coming up?
The temporary sign permit?
Yes.
Yes, during the process, our stakeholder meetings, I actually went to one of the big property manager companies and did a presentation at their staff meeting to let them know. And then I've also talked to I contacted the different property owner management companies in the region and talked to them about that we're doing this on, what do you think about this? And
So if we get a call from the retail associations of Nevada about this, because they're the ones going to probably be the first one to go ahead and talk about it, they know about this right now.
the people that I've talked to know are aware about it, yes. We haven't done like a press release, and it's been not, I personally went out and I drove around, looked at what the management companies are that are, advertising in the different shopping centers and contacted them.
Okay, but we have contacted the Retail Association of Nevada.
No.
Okay.
Can we reach out to the chamber?
We did reach out to the chamber. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Public hearing, anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular item? And we managed to run them all off, so. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action. Ms. Bybee.
I'll try again. I move to adopt Resolution 3272, amending Resolution 3255, revising fees to services provided by the City of Sparks for temporary sign permits.
Do you have a second? Please.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Bybee, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 11.2 as outlined by staff, Resolution 3272. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 3-1 with Mr. Schmidt as a no. Mr. Lawson is an abstention because he works in the industry. Okay. Hopefully this will be the end of signs for a while.
Yeah, please.
Is this a good sign or
Digital.
digital?
Congratulate Tim and Karen and everybody who works around Tim and Karen for, that was a yeoman's effort, and I know that we weren't always easiest to understand. I'll speak for myself. Actually, I'll speak for us all, especially Mike Kerrigan, who's not here to defend himself. So, but thank you. That was a long haul, and we know how hard you worked, and it was great. Good job.
Okay, moving on. Don't forget we have a closed-door session after redevelopment meeting. Comments from the public?
I have one.
You're not the public.
Oh, right.
Comments from the city council and city manager. Ms. Ratty, I'm thinking.
I wanted to publicly thank the city staff, and particularly John Martini and Andy Acheta, for their spirit, enthusiasm, creative problem solving, everything that it took to make it happen so that Last Chance Joe is now towering over Victorian Avenue, and I just got so many positive comments during and after the parade, but from people who were thankful to have him there. And I know that this is not your typical project, particularly for engineers, to get a little bit out of their box. So, just wanted to say that myself, but more so, lots and lots of people in the city of Sparks are thankful.
Mr. Lawson?
And while Mrs. Dominguez is here, we'd like to move our float up in the parade next year.
Please.
The buck stops with you. Gino and I have had a cock in.
Anyone else? My comment, great parade, excellent, great turnout. Only one councilman tried to ruin it for us, but other than that, it turned out very nice, I thought.
I'm not saying who it is.
Yeah, we're not mentioning. I had a cramp. Not mentioning any names. Anyway, the weather was beautiful. Everybody did a good job, went out without a hitch, and it was just a really, really nice parade. So thank you, staff, for taking care of that. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing no further comments? Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you going to announce Board of Health?
That one's done.
Announce it again real quick, just for the heck of it.
Let me do the announcement, and then I'll explain what we're going to do with Board of Health, and we can go from there.
Great. Thank you.
So I do have an announcement for the Parks and Recreation Board. One member to fill a term that will end on June 30th of 2015. Any persons interested in serving on this committee should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You can also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. You click on City Services on the web page, then you click on Volunteering, Get Involved, and then you click on Fill Out the Application. The applications will be accepted until the close of business on December 15th, 2014. In addition, a related item, we had no one apply for the Health Department. That closed on the 28th of November. So the proposal, normally what we would do at that point, we would go to our other applications they have on record and see if anyone's interested from that standpoint. So we have a little bit of work to do, and the soonest we'd be able to address that would be the January 12th meeting. So if there's suggestions from the council, or if there is someone that's interested in that one specifically, then probably should contact me and see what we can do about getting them.
Steve, I just got an application from a gentleman that Ed Lawson and I met with last week.
Okay.
That's interested in doing something with the city. He's a retired dentist, doctor, whatever, doctor of dentistry, I guess you might want to say, who is interested in doing that particular board. I would like Ms. Ratty to talk with him briefly to see if what her thoughts are, and if so, then I would like to appoint him. He's a gentleman in our Rotary Club, very interested in doing something with the city of Sparks, was very, very involved with the city he came from in Texas, and wants to be involved in our city. So if that's preferable, if that's okay with the council.
If there's no objections, I'd be happy to work with that, and I'll just double check that we're not violating any rules, and then we'll go from there a bit. This one, we originally announced that it required to be medically, someone that was medical. We determined that was not the case. Right. So the fact that he does at least have some experience and that it helps you with your appointment, I'd be happy to work with that. I think him talking to our representative would be a good thing to do.
All right, anyone else, comments? Okay, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
One other thing, just a matter of business, just to remind the public that this will be our only council meeting for the month of December. The council has agreed to cancel the one on December 22nd, and so the next meeting of this body will be on Monday, January 12th. I am done now.
Anyone else? Comments? Last time. Going. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of December 8th, 2014, with a roll call. 2014.
Chairman Ratty.
Here.
Agency members Smith.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Bybee. Here. Schmidt.
Here.
Agency Attorney Adams.
Here.
And Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
All right, do we have any public comment? Seeing none, moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second?
Moved by Mayor Martini, seconded by Councilman Lawson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes of November 24th, 2014.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, report of claims and bills approved for payment and appropriation transfers period November 13th through November 19th.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second?
Moved by Mayor Martini, seconded by Councilman Lawson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7, review and possible approval of an exclusive negotiating agreement between the City of Sparks, the redevelopment agency of the City of Sparks, and Silver Wing Development.
Move to approve?
Second.
We've seen this presentation before.
Do we, and it's not a hearing and
It's not
no public comment. So, got a motion by
Lawson?
Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Comments from the public. Again, comments from the agency and Chief Administrative.
You owe me, I got you off the hook.
Chief Administrative Officer, Steve.
Madam Chair, just to remind this body that this is your one scheduled meeting for the month of December. Normally, it's done in the second meeting of the month, so since we canceled the 22nd, there will be no meeting of this body. The next regularly scheduled meeting for this body will be on Monday, January 26th.
Anyone else? I just have one quick comment, which is to thank everyone for appointing me the chair, since it was a very difficult participation in that last meeting on the phone. It was hard to hear, and I wasn't exactly clear what happened until I got back in town. So. Thanks so much in your faith.
Oh, you're on sewer appeals, too. Did you know?
Perfect. Great. Let me know once I got. Teresa's already got my back, so I.
Okay.
All right. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right. We're good. And they'll all be that efficient.
Where are we going to be at? One of the